there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son get together and talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy stuff we feel like talking about. Today is one of those episodes where Zach is not around. He's off living the good life and doing his own thing. But I've got a couple of fantastic guests who have joined me today as we're going to spend some time talking about Star Wars, the state of Star Wars these days, where it's at now, what's good about it, and maybe what's not. Both of these individuals have welcomed me onto their own shows at times. And Spence, you've been here a lot of times for other episodes. Glenn, it's your first time being on our show, I believe. So It's fantastic to have you guys here. I want to give you a moment to introduce yourselves. So Spencer, they do know you already, probably, but tell them who you are and what you want to say about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Spencer from the Fantasy Files podcast. I'm kind of the main host over there. We have a few other ones. I started it with my best friend Gabe, and then we brought on another lifelong friend, Chris, and then just recently we brought on our fourth co-host, Mick, and he is from Ireland. He lives in Australia right now, but he's Irish. But yeah, we talk about fantasy and sci-fi. We bring authors on for interviews. We do topical discussions, and we also bring on other content creators, booktubers, YouTubers, podcasters to come on our show and talk about their content creation journey. But yeah, you can find us on YouTube if you're interested in any of that stuff. It's just Fantasy Files Podcast. We also have a second channel called the Fantasy Files Reacts, where we don't upload as regularly, but we talk about like movies and TV shows and that kind of thing.
All right. Yeah, check their stuff out for sure. I'm a subscriber over there. They've got some good things to come out. Some of them downright make me laugh, not in a bad way, in an entertained way for certain. So good stuff, and we're glad to have you here again. Glenn, tell us about you and whatever you want to share.
I'm a middle-aged, lifelong nerd and geek, as you can see in the name below. I've been reading and watching science fiction and fantasy almost exclusively for 9 to 50 years here now. I'm on the internet all over the place. You'll see me as the Geeky Hippie. If you see the Geeky Hippie, that's me, not anybody else. Otherwise, they're a poser, and I don't know who they are. I have 2 YouTube channels. The first one I created a year or two ago called What the Adaptation. We review adaptations from one format to another format. We started with The Wheel of Time. We've been through a whole bunch of stuff. We're currently doing season 3 of The Witcher. And we'll be doing season 2 of Wheel of Time coming up here in just a month or two, a couple months. Looking forward to that. My friend Bill, also known as Matt Stagger, he and I have another channel, Non-Terrestrial Half-Life. We reread books from the first half of our life and discuss them and how well they hold up. We've done Dragonlance, Chronicles, and Legends. We've done Ursula Le Guin's first Earthsea trilogy. And coming up, we've got Raymond E. Feist's Rift War saga, starting with Magicians. Nice. And Jim's coming on to discuss the third book in that trilogy with us.
That's a great series. Definitely.
I love that series. Been looking forward to that one already a lot.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks for being here. Both of you share something that makes it sense to be on this show, and that is we like Star Wars. You know, we kind of, it's a thing, you know, we kind of do enjoy it. We have different experiences with it. I can tell for sure that my experience is going to be different from Spencer's because I'm hecka older than you, dude. So what I want to do is, you know, we'll certainly talk about how did we encounter Star Wars? What's our history and our thoughts? We'll get into all that. But before we do that, there is something that I always do when I'm on a show, and Zach does too. I do it on everybody else's show too. I'm always drinking something because you got to drink something. Now today, very specifically, I have appropriate glassware for our discussion. Nice. Okay. I believe this was a gift from Zach. And my wife said she made me this. This is a mojito, by the way, with mint fresh from our garden. Yeah, and it was dangerous because a wasp attacked her trying to get the mint pulled. It just bounced off. She's tough. But the mojito is delicious. But she was like, so do you want the good glass or the bad glass? Because, I've got the other side of things too. It's not all about the first order. I went evil today, though. So that's what I'm drinking. Is anybody else drinking anything interesting today? It's not a requirement to be on the show, but I always like to ask.
I've got a 1 part regular coffee, 2 part decaf coffee mix in here.
Oh, that's dangerous.
I try to cut down on the amount of caffeinated coffee I drink.
Nice.
I've got a cherry pomegranate fruit juice mix. So
awesome.
Cherry pomegranate's a great combination.
That sounds good, actually.
That's
I don't think I've ever had that combo, but it's good.
Yeah, no alcohol.
That's
I rarely drink, so
you'll continue to speak clearly all through the episode.
Right.
We appreciate that. Spencer, you got anything today?
No, I have my signature Gatorade that I always.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
I went camping last weekend, and it turned into like a 4-day camping trip where pretty much every single day we were drinking like all day.
I'm glad you made it back.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get lost on a camping trip.
Yeah. And so, yeah, after that, I was just like, okay, I think I'm going to like just drink water for the next week. Just
hydrate, man. Hydrate. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into Star Wars then. And the first question I want us all to take a moment to chat on is, your history with Star Wars. And I'm going to go first on this because I want you to kind of keep it succinct, because then we're going to talk about, your how much you've actually managed to absorb of Star Wars. So just history to go back. How did you get into it and such? For me, as a kid, I watched the original movies when they hit theaters. I was just a kid. I think single digits when the first movie came out. And I loved it. I was like, so from day one, this is one way my parents were good parents. They took us to the theater to see Star Wars. And then I had the action figures. I had spaceships. I never got the Millennium Falcon. Apparently that was too expensive as a toy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got it now. But as a child, I was pining for it. No, they always said, no, you ain't getting that one. Yeah. But I had a lot of the others. I had my Twin Pod, my Snow Speeder. I had a lot of different ones. They were cool. X-Wing. Mm-hmm. I had some of the play sets. The coolest was Dagobah, where Yoda could there was actually a little foam pit you could sink down into the mud. It was cool. Oh. So I had all that stuff, and I was a total Star Wars geek, and I've been in love with Star Wars ever since. Glenn, how about you?
I first saw it at a drive-through. It was either in 77 or 78. I don't know. It was the first movie.
Okay.
I was just a wee little laddie. Grew up with all the toys, including I had the Millennium Falcon. Still in the garage somewhere. It's not.
I'm still jealous. It's
the one play set that I had. I didn't have any of the other play sets or vehicle. No, I had a land speeder. But I had a ton of the action figures. I had a ton of the characters. And
Did you have the case all the time? You could get a case.
No, I didn't have it. I might have had a case at one point.
Man.
I remember I had part of how I learned to read was I had the oversized edition of the Marvel Comics adaptation.
Okay.
And that led to some issues as I would see Star Wars growing up before the special edition, because wait a second, where's the scene with Jabba? Jabba was in here. Jabba, where's the scenes with Biggs? All these scenes, they were in the comic because and then got cut from the movie.
Yeah.
But I think I learned how to read from that. And I've seen every theatrical release with the exception of 2. And that was, I didn't see Return of the Jedi Special Edition or the Clone Wars theatrical release. Okay. And all of them except Rogue One and Solo I saw with my parents. So I've done every Star Wars, all 9 Star Wars movies at some point or another with my parents.
Did you have a favorite action figure? Thinking back as a kid, was there a favorite or a couple favorites?
No, not really. I kind of like Aquaman, or not Aquaman, whatever the one, Walrus Man.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's the Aqualish.
Right.
Think where I got Aquaman.
I was like, Aquaman.
The Aqualish.
We're not talking DC
today.
What are you doing?
Walrus Man I had fun with.
All right.
Darth Vader action figure was pretty cool too.
With the lightsaber come out of his arm.
Yeah. And Yoda came with a little orange snake.
I liked IG-88, the bounty hunter, and so when we've seen versions of that come back in more current content, I'm like, yes, okay. Spencer, how about you? How did you get into Star Wars?
I think that growing up, it was something that my mom had been really into. She loved, obviously, the original trilogy. That was all that was out at the time. And she bought me like all of the figurines, and we saw the OT many times, watched them on loop on our VHS tapes. We had like that box that was like Darth Vader's face, and it like slid. Yeah. So yeah, we watched those all the time. Yeah, that's how it started. And she bought me so many figures. Like, we're talking about like the Millennium Falcon. I had that as a kid. I had the AT-AT. I had so many, like the Snow Speeder, all of the vehicles. I had all those, and then a bunch of the figures. I had the Luke and Vader that with the light up lightsaber. You press a button and like their little lightsaber lights up.
I never had those.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
That must have been a later run.
See, a little younger like has benefits sometimes.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You can almost tell his age, Jim. He called it an AT-AT, not its proper name, AT-AT.
It's an AT-AT. Come on,
AT-AT. It is not an AT-AT.
It's an AT-AT.
Good point. Good
But,
point.
so that's the other divisive question.
What's that?
You could have included. That's the other divisive question to include, other than the Han Solo.
Oh yeah,
is it an AT-AT or AT-AT?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
so your mom brought you into the fandom, is what I'm hearing there.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then when the prequels came out, like I know a lot of people don't like the prequels, and I understand why. I'm kind of a prequel apologist. Like I mean, that's like what I grew up with, so that's just kind of what I liked. And so I loved like Obi-Wan and seeing a younger version of him, and of course Qui-Gon. The prequel movies were kind of the ones that I grew up with as I got to be like, 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. And then, yeah, of course, I wouldn't say that I was a big, like a massive fan of them growing up. Like, I was never, I don't know. I was never like the Star Wars kid. Like, I was never the kid with like the Star Wars backpack or anything, but my whole family watched them all the time. So I watched them with them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk some, you both have kind of talked a little bit more about the things you have experienced over time, and I want to give you a chance to double down a little bit more on that. But, for me, I really did, I watched those first 3 movies, and then I played Star Wars for years, and I had all the toys and except the Millennium Falcon. And, it really fostered imagination, and being able to be creative with what else could happen. And it was just a lot of fun. Then after all these years go by, and that's all we have, those 3 movies, then Lucas modernized those 3 movies, added in his CG touches. Some of the cut scenes were added back in, and I went back to theaters for those theatrical releases. I stood in line for the first one a really long time, so I could see it that first day. I am so here for this. And, and my son wasn't even born yet, so that was still a while back. But I loved those changes. I know people who hate the bad CG that was added to the classic. I'm like, no, just give me more. I want more content. So I was perfectly happy with those.
Does that include Jedi Rocks?
Jedi Rocks.
The musical number in Return of the Jedi that they did instead of the original.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't care for that song as much. That's true. Okay. And I didn't like where they changed the Ghost Skywalker now, later on to look like, no.
Yeah.
But, overall, I
Okay.
liked.
I
that
just had to
things
be
were
sure
added in.
there.
Yeah, okay, we're clarifying. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I did see all the other movies as they came out. Spencer, you're not going to get arguments from me. I like the original the flashback trilogy. I don't have the issues people. I mean, the hate for Jar Jar Binks. I'm like, nah, I like Jar Jar. He's fun. I wish we could have had him be. I wish he could have been Darth Jar Jar. That's a whole nother theory out there. I was there for that, man.
Theory.
That would have been epic,
Yeah.
but that didn't happen.
I do understand the Jar Jar hate because my mom and grandma love Jar Jar Binks, and I hated it. I was like, this is the stupidest character.
I don't really have a problem. The only theatrical released movie that's out that I haven't seen is actually a Solo story. I haven't seen Han Solo's film. I never really felt a drive for that one. I need to go back and watch it at some point, but I just never got around to it.
Just watch it for Amelia Clark.
Okay,
Amelia Clark.
Like her.
Watch it for her.
I do try to stay current with what's out on Disney Plus now, but they had a lot of stuff coming out. So I have to admit, I'm lax. Like, I haven't finished Andor yet. I'm 2/3 of the way done, and I've just been so busy doing other things. I've not finished that one. I was remembering I hadn't finished when we're prepping for this episode. I'm like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to admit I don't know the ending yet. And I never saw any of the Clone Wars stuff. I am familiar with some of it because Zach and I have talked, but the ones that were done in animated, I haven't watched those. Yeah, I've seen all of the Mandalorian, totally there. And
Disney has a playlist for you. Right? It's all the episodes that are important about Ahsoka. For when the next show comes out, you really are going to want to watch their playlist, their Ahsoka playlist. I think it's the 10th row down on the Star Wars page on Disney Plus.
Well, Glenn, how about you then? Are you current then on everything that Disney Plus has put out? Have you been able to watch it all?
Everything, yes. Every episode. I've seen most episodes twice. Except for, I did watch Book of Boba Fett twice. I had a friend over to watch some of that. The only things I'm lacking on, I haven't watched the Visions series, but I'm not an anime fan, and those aren't canon.
I hadn't even heard of those until you mentioned them before the show.
Oh, really?
I don't read the comics, but I stay kind of up to date on the general story ideas in the comics through Alex Damon over on Star Wars Explained. If you ever want to learn something about Star Wars, go to his channel. He's an expert. I haven't read most of the books. They've put out a whole bunch of new novels, and I've only read a handful of them. I just can't keep up with that and all my other reading that I have.
Yeah.
And it just, Star Wars isn't the thing I read anymore. Just like Dragonlance isn't really the thing I'm interested in reading anymore.
Yep. I haven't read any of the new printed material for Star Wars. I had read almost all of what's now called Legends, I think.
Yes,
all the
I've read
classic
most
stuff.
of those.
I loved those. We'll talk about those later in the episode. We'll get to that. But none of the new stuff. Spencer, how about you? Is there stuff that you haven't gotten to, or are you pretty current on things now?
Yeah, so I mentioned when you asked me to come on here, I was like, I'm not like the most comprehensive like Star Wars viewer. I haven't seen most of the new stuff.
But you'd heard of Visions, because you were like, really, Jim?
Yeah. I've heard of Visions. I thought that was, I haven't seen it, but I thought it was a really cool idea. But nowadays I'm mostly into Star Wars just for like the controversy. I just kind of keep my fingers on the pulse of the just the crazy stuff going on. But I've seen as far as recent stuff, I've seen the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I skipped the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, and then I saw Andor.
Okay.
And those are kind of and I saw like, the most recent trilogy once, and I was just like, well, this is crap, and just moved on.
We'll discuss that a little later too, but I want to touch on something else here. So I liked the Book of Boba Fett. That worked for me. That was good. I also enjoyed Obi-Wan, and I know there's a lot of haters for that series, and I don't know why they hate it. So
Mm.
I
you
understand
chose not
some
to
of
watch it, Spencer. Was there a reason you chose not to? You just didn't fit it in.
I mean, basically because the critical drinker told me not to, you know, or just like YouTube in general, people were like, no, you don't want to watch this. It's garbage. And I have so little time for any like extracurricular media
It's like,
outside of
not gonna waste my time with it if they said it's garbage.
Yeah,
No,
I'm like,
I hear you.
You know, if enough people tell me not to read something or not to watch something, usually I'm gonna be like, okay, like I don't really have the time for that anyway.
That's right. You've got to save your time for those Wheel of Time books that you still have to finish.
Exactly.
I understand.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
All those sites that said not to watch it, did they say not to watch any of the sequel trilogy? Because if they talk crap about the sequel trilogy, I wouldn't be surprised if they say don't watch most of the Disney Plus stuff. Because it's the menace crowd out there.
Yeah.
I stay away from that crowd because too much negativity about Star Wars.
Everybody has opinions, and they're fair to have their opinions.
Yep.
Especially when we think they're wrong, they're still. It's fair for them to have their opinion.
Yep.
But Glenn, you liked Obi-Wan. You said you thought
it was good. I wouldn't say it's super good, but it was good. There's plenty of Star Wars better than it, and plenty of Star Wars worse than it. I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars worse than it, but you know, it's not the one. I wasn't surprised when it got nominated for Best Limited or Anthology at the Emmys. It's now an Emmy-nominated series for not a below the line, but for the story and the show itself. But I was ecstatic when Andor got 8 nominations. So
yeah,
that
just reinforced. I do need to finish Andor. It reinforced it. I must. Bad Jim.
Wait until after season 2 of Andor, and then watch Rogue One, and it'll just be even better.
Okay. And Rogue One, great movie. I enjoyed.
Rogue One is awesome.
We're okay. I saw heads nodding. We're all united on that one. Spencer, you were gonna say something else. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Andor was the thing. So that whole crowd that craps on all of the Disney Plus, and like just to be clear, I agree with them. Like I have not enjoyed really any of the Disney Plus shows besides Andor. But you know, all of those guys that kind of talk crap about that, for them to say, no, you have to watch Andor. It was like, okay. And so then I did, and I really, really, really enjoyed my time with it. I really need to do a rewatch because now that we're talking about the ending, I'm like, how did it end? But
and you don't remember, and Glenn has seen it, but he's not going to tell me how Andor ends because I hate spoilers. So save it for me. All right.
But it was great. I really loved Andor, like significantly, like even compared to other shows outside of Star Wars that I was watching at the time, I was like, this is really, really, really good.
Now, one of the things that's fun about Star Wars is the controversies. Honestly, people have opinions, and people have strong opinions about things they feel strongly about. So this is just entertainment media, but it is so consumed our culture. You know, everybody's heard of Star Wars. Everyone knows about Star Wars. Even people who've never seen a movie know what a Wookiee is now. You know, I mean, there's certain elements that have woven in, and that speaks to the quality of the underlying story and themes and elements that are tied into it, even if you don't like parts of it. But
opinions on Star Wars always change too. I mean, when Empire Strikes Back came out, the critics panned it. It didn't get good reviews,
and they were wrong.
Now most people think it's the best. That's what, you know, and then people hated the prequels until Spencer's generation grew up and they were online and they started defending the prequels because that's your Star Wars, right, Spencer? That's your Star Wars.
Very true. That's exactly how that happened.
Most of my generation still hates the prequels. I like them. You know, there's one Star Wars film that I hate, and that was The Rise of Skywalker. We'll talk about that later.
That's coming up. But I do want to ask about one of those controversies that was a thing for quite a while was Han Solo the cantina. Did he shoot first or not? And people go on and on and on with this, and it's fun. Glenn, did he shoot first?
I'll give you Harrison Ford's answer. I don't care. That's exactly how he said it. I don't care. I don't think it changes anything significant in the story. It might change the way people think of Han a little bit. Like, okay, he's a POS here because, it's out of the blue. He shoots this guy. At least that's the theory of why they want him to shoot him, so he can be a badass because he shot a guy in cold blood. He didn't shoot a guy in cold blood. The guy had a gun on him. You're completely legit to shoot him. Either way, Han Solo is the same person. Greedo is dead. And the bartender wooer got a coin.
That's right.
That's the only thing significant about it.
Yeah. Spence, any
had
opinion?
an extra drink afterwards.
What do you think?
So I think that this whole I've certainly heard this discussed before, and I know like the scene that you're talking about and everything, but I think that this whole discussion happened at some point when I wasn't like as into Star Wars when this really kind of started popping off. And so maybe you guys can kind of explain to me, it's because of a certain edit, right? The way they edited it.
Several.
People don't know who shot first.
Well, and when they redid it, then when it came out as the second edition that George Lucas did, he made it look different than it did the first time, and that really sparked the controversy. What do you mean you're making it like that?
I see.
Because it was unclear at first.
In the original Star Wars, before Lucas did Special Edition, Greedo had the gun on him, and Han shot him under the table in the middle of Greedo saying something.
See, that's the way I remember it.
The original Special Edition version is Greedo shoots, then Han shoots, and Greedo shoots and falls dead.
It's kind of like right at the same time, but Han was justified.
They did another tweak. Then they did another tweak where Han does this, or actually more like a really fast version of this, just sliding back and forth. It looks really, really bad. Now Greedo says McClunky.
Han shot first because he wasn't a nice guy. He really wasn't. Look at his history, his background, how he was successful as he was. He was a criminal. And you get to this point for being who you are, but there's a redemption arc for him because deep down he had character. He had something that responded to what he was seeing around him. And that's why you love Han Solo. It's part of saying no one is irredeemable. The good can use anyone and people can change. And it's great. Anyways, let's get to best Star Wars movie. Okay, of all those movies with theatrical releases, which one is your opinion best movie? Spencer, you go first this time.
Okay, so I think that it's so tough because I have like a more modern, like recent favorite, and then I have like, what the answer should be. And for me,
it should be. You're feeling
like,
pressured?
Like what everyone expects it to be. Like I would pull from the original trilogy, probably like Return of the Jedi. I think that's just the climax of everything, tying everything up. I think that is just a fantastic movie. As a kid, I mentioned, we would rewatch Star Wars a bunch of times, and it was always that movie that I would put into our old VHS player to start up. I always went back to that one.
Okay, now what do you feel pressured to say, or what do you really think?
That's the one that I feel pressured.
Okay, what do you really feel these days?
So a more recent favorite is the Han Solo movie, and I know that's a super divisive opinion. People really don't like that movie. I know people do not like the Han Solo movie. I loved it.
But some do.
I thought it was a ton of fun. Yeah, because here's why I think Han Solo is easily my favorite character across Star Wars.
Fair.
And I'm a big fan of like roguish badasses who are just so cool. and Han is that for me. And I thought the guy that played him looked a lot like him. I thought that he acted a lot like him. I know that's not a super popular opinion, but I was really happy with it. I don't know.
Okay.
Makes me happy to hear you say that,
man.
Yeah.
So Glenn, what about you?
Well, the question you have here is best, and that's different than my answer. Favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
My favorite Star Wars movie is A New Hope. It probably always will be.
Just the nostalgia that it touches you a bit.
Nostalgia, how much fun I had reading the comics, reading the novelization, playing with the toys until Empire came out, and then seeing that and getting more toys. But everything goes back to A New Hope for me. And in so many ways, it's kind of almost the perfect movie. But the best movie in the Star Wars universe, saga, is for me hands down The Last Jedi. I don't think I've ever seen a movie as finely crafted, as finely written, as finely directed, and as finely shot as that movie is. It's just, I walked out of there with my jaw just hanging. I was just like, I was stunned. I couldn't believe I'd seen something so masterful. It blew me away.
Okay.
At just about every level. And then all of a sudden people hated it. And I'm like,
subjective.
I don't understand.
You're right.
I understand it.
Yeah. Now you're right. I did put in the questions we were going to do best Star Wars movie, and usually I do kind of think of it if it's the best, it's your favorite, but that's not necessarily true. You make a very valid point there. Yeah. For me, I feel the best movie is also the one that's my favorite, and that is Return of the Jedi. Spencer, yeah, Return of the Jedi. It brought it all together. There's certain elements of the various characters that are so good in that movie. And
you're good with Ewoks?
I love the Ewoks. They're adorable. Now, don't talk about the Christmas special they did on TV afterwards. That was just ridiculous. But the Ewoks, as they are, I could do it. You saw that?
I saw the holiday special live as it aired. And I saw both Ewok movies when they were played on TV. I've seen everything. The only non-canon or TV type stuff I haven't seen all of is the droids and the Ewoks cartoon shows. Yeah, I haven't seen all of either of those.
Okay. Well, let's talk. And again, this is subjective. You can have reasons that are very analytical and statistical if you like, but what do you believe is the worst of the Star Wars movies? Again, focused on theatrical release movies. What's the worst one? And I'll do this one first. We'll go backwards order this time. So I'm going to do it. Then I'll let Glenn, then Spencer, you'll finish us off. But for me, The Rise of Skywalker. Really, guys? How could you? Oh, man. I use a term very often with a set of books, movies, whatever, where they fail to land the plane. And wow, this plane crashed hard. There's so many things that as I'm watching it, I'm practically screaming. Now I'm in a theater, so I'm not screaming. But internally, I'm like, what? That is so stupid. How? Yeah. Again and again and again, I felt that. It's done well as a movie. The actual special effects, the acting. For the most part, there's a couple characters that no, but just the story itself, it sucked. So that's me.
Yeah.
Glenn, how about you?
100% with you. It is the only Star Wars movie I actively dislike. I don't dislike any of the TV stuff either. It's the one Star Wars thing that I think I would rather sit down and watch the holiday special than sit down and watch The Rise of Skywalker. That might be a little bit exaggeration there, but it's not far from how I feel about it.
Okay.
I gave you a ranked listing, and you see it's right there at the bottom of that list, below everything else. The only thing that's below it is Visions, because that's not canon. And I haven't seen it. I've only seen the first episode. I went from watching this magnificent piece, The Last Jedi, and then I go to the theater opening night for The Rise of Skywalker, and I was like, okay, that dagger, yeah, sure, the dagger tells you where you're going to find what you need, but only if you're standing on that one certain spot along the shore at a certain time of day to get the light just right so you're seeing everything. No, everything was just contrived.
Yeah.
I do not think J.J. Abrams should be allowed near the last movie of a trilogy for any franchise. He could do a first movie, but I said it was a mistake putting him in. They should have kept the other guy. I can't even think of his name now. And Chris Terrio should not be allowed to write Star Wars ever again.
Banned.
Yeah,
Right.
it was all around bad.
We're of like minds here on this one. But how about you, Spencer? What's the worst one for your opinion?
Man, so I don't know which one of the sequel trilogy to choose. I would guess maybe The Force Awakens or The Rise of Skywalker. And here's the thing: I don't know enough about like the hardcore details of Star Wars to be like, well, this is why this is wrong and this is why this sucks or whatever. But just as like a casual consumer watching that sequel trilogy, especially, I vividly remember the first time I watched The Force Awakens, and I was so close to falling asleep in the theaters, and I was just like, this doesn't feel like the Star Wars that I grew, like even the prequel stuff, like it doesn't feel like anything that I remember Star Wars being.
No, I hear you there. I had that same thought with that movie of, is that all?
Yeah.
That's what you're giving us? I mean, okay, it's a nice start, but we needed more. That's how I felt. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think at the time too, I was confused because especially when like the Force Awakens came out, I was especially not like super savvy on any like deep lore Star Wars stuff. And I was so confused at the time. I'm like, wait, so is she related to Skywalker, or how is this working? And then later on, it was just kind of like, okay, so they're just calling her Rey Skywalker. And I don't know, that whole the whole sequel. And to be fair, I do not remember the middle movie that much. Like I don't remember The Last Jedi all that much. I think it just kind of bleeds into the background for me. But definitely the Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker for me are just, yeah.
I will defend one thing in Rise of Skywalker, and that's the use of the name Rey Skywalker. The lady asks who you are. She turns around and looks, and there's the Force ghosts of both Luke and Leia, the last two Skywalkers we know of. And they're both nodding, yeah. Okay, she turns back Skywalker. She was essentially adopted as a Skywalker by the two.
She's carrying on.
The two Force ghosts. So she's carrying on their name.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad was adopted, so we know what his birth name was, but it's not what we go by. We go by the name of the family that adopted him. And so they post-mortem adopted her. Nothing you can do when you're able to come back as a Force ghost.
Right.
So before we move...
That's the one thing I didn't mind.
Before we move any further, Glenn, I want to throw up your list here now.
Okay.
For us to just kind of look at. He took the time to kind of rank all of the various movies and TV shows that have been here now and kind of put them in his preference order. And he already told us, number 1, A New Hope, and down at the bottom, The Rise of Skywalker. But Spencer, when you look at this list, does any of this jump out as really, and and a surprise for you?
Man, maybe the Last Jedi, just because I didn't like the sequel.
Right.
No, I don't know. And a lot of this I haven't seen. Like I haven't seen the Clone War or the the cartoon Clone Wars series or the Bad Batch. That's actually one I've been meaning to get to because I've heard the Bad Batch was kind of cool.
Excellent. Excellent show.
I've heard good things. Yeah.
Now,
yeah. A lot of people
be
talk
clear.
well.
The space between number 19 and number 20 is about 5 pages of blankness. Okay, that's how far below Attack of the Clones I ranked Rise of Skywalker.
Sure.
I ranked Attack of the Clones 19, not because I dislike the movie. It's just there's 18 things in the Star Wars franchise I like more than. And if so I still really like Attack of the Clones. That should tell you how much I like the stuff at the top of the list. It's like Star Wars is my home franchise. It is my initial fandom.
The one thing that I see when I look at this list, certainly I disagree with some of your orders, and that's because we're subjective. It always is. But the one that I'm like almost shocked to see is that you have Phantom Menace above Return of the Jedi. Because almost universally, people pan the Phantom Menace. Now, I enjoy it still, even with some of the cringy moments in it, but to be better than Return of the Jedi in your preference, I'm like, oh, really?
There was a time where the only Star Wars I had available to watch was to play the Phantom Menace on VHS. And so I've seen that movie about 100,000 times. And I've never been a big fan of Return of the Jedi. It wore you down.
That's what you're saying. It wore you down, and it has to be better.
Return of the Jedi has never been a big favorite of mine. It's got its great moments, but it just...
Okay, fair.
Yeah. When you guys both said Return of the Jedi, I was surprised. I expected both of you to say Empire Strikes Back, because that's the one that it seems like the internet, expects you to say for the best Star Wars.
Yeah, well, we defy expectations. That's
and just originally Empire got panned reviews from the critics. Fans loved it, but there were still a lot of people who disliked it. Eventually, it became one of the most beloved and respected. Everybody, lots of people on there will say it's the best. I think in 20 years' time, The Last Jedi will be seen the same exact way. People will look at TLJ and be like, that was the best made Star Wars movie we've had yet. It's as good as Empire, if not better.
Interesting.
Nothing in the prequels really is gonna. Just the prequels as a whole, as we've all aged, including Spencer's generation aging and us aging. It's evolved, and our attitudes on the prequel trilogy have changed. A lot of people don't hate it the way they used to, and I like it because I try to stay positive about Star Wars. Until we bring up The Rise of Skywalker, and then I have a hard time being positive.
All right.
What was if I could ask real quick, can you bring that picture up one more time?
Yes, I certainly can.
What's Resistance?
Star Wars Resistance, an animated show that was on Disney Plus. Well, it wasn't Disney Plus. I think it was Disney XD at the time. It should be on Disney Plus. Warning: it's geared towards 7 to 10-year-olds.
Oh, okay.
So it's younger. It's geared younger than the Clone Wars was.
There you go.
Okay.
But the Clone Wars grew up fast. I mean, really fast. Clone Wars is dark. There's some really dark stuff.
It might be a cartoon, but it's not for kids, really. No.
Yeah. Is Tales of the Jedi? Is Tales of the Jedi kind of the same thing?
No, it's a bunch of little shorts, mostly the prequel era right now. Okay. It's 6 shorts. Like 3 of them are Ahsoka, 3 of them are Dooku. Okay. We see how Dooku gets seduced to the dark side.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. So let's jump specifically to content on Disney Plus then. What do you believe is the best show they've rolled out so far? I mean, for me, it's The Mandalorian. I'm entertained by The Mandalorian. I thoroughly enjoy all the various elements of it. Getting to see more about this whole culture, the Mandalorian culture, has been fascinating to me. But I'm also captivated by Grogu. I'll admit it. I'm a sucker for the little guy, and I want to see what else. Where else will they take this? So that's me, The Mandalorian. Spencer, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely Andor. I think that Andor did something that was so different. Like going in, I had no idea what Andor was going to be. Like there was I feel like the marketing around it, or maybe it was just my lack of being in the know or whatever. I just had no idea what Andor was supposed to be. But I knew it was like, some of the characters from Rogue One and whatnot. but yeah, then going in, I was completely taken with it. I'm like, even if this wasn't a Star Wars show, I would love this show.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely mine. I'm really surprised to. I mean, maybe I'm not super surprised to hear you say The Mandalorian. I think for me, can we talk about what we didn't like about the Disney Plus stuff, or do we have a segment coming up for that? Can I just say real quick?
Just do it. Do it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I liked the first season of The Mandalorian, but I think what I was hoping it would be almost kind of like a Dresden Files, like Monster of the Week kind of thing, of him going out and getting his bounty and tracking down like a new bad guy every week. And for a while it was that. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love seeing him take these bounties and hunting these guys down. It's kind of like this big, arc per episode. And then the Grogu stuff happened, and everybody was super captivated with Grogu. And at first I was like, I get it. But then I thought that it was going to be a plot device that would kind of come and go, and it would lead to more of the Mandalorian's arc. But then Disney saw how insanely popular Grogu was and how many stuffed animals and stuff they could sell. And so they're like, well, we're just going to bring him in every season.
But man, that is true to Star Wars roots.
They didn't even have...
It's about the marketing,
they didn't even have... Yeah. The thing is, they didn't even have Grogu dolls for months until after the season had finished. Because that wasn't the first thing on their mind.
Right.
That wasn't the first. They wanted to tell a good story.
Yeah.
One thing people always say about Disney is Disney's all about a cash grab. No, I think Disney, every business is a cash grab, but I think they want to tell a good story, and I think for the most part they do.
But I think
I'm not surprised you said Mandalorian.
I think they ended up trading the good storytelling for the Grogu. They're like, Grogu. We have to have Grogu. Okay. So we have to find a way to have him in the series.
But did you say you haven't watched the second season?
No, I've seen the second season. I haven't seen the third season. And, I made it all the way through the second season, and I was just like, yeah, this is just Grogu marketing at this point. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the third season that
they do turn it around. We get more Mandalorian storyline. We really do. It gets deeper. Yeah.
Just make sure to watch Book of Boba Fett before you watch season 3 of Mando.
Yes. So, Glenn, how about you on this then?
It's all about Andor.
See, I got to finish Andor. Clearly, I have to finish
What
Andor.
was the last episode you watched? So I can what happened? So I know where not to go beyond by mentioning things.
Literally, I think it's the heist on that planet where they steal.
They finished the Aldani.
They finished the heist. That's where I'm done. That was it.
Oh, you're halfway through the season.
I'm only halfway. Oh crap.
Yes, there's 12 episodes.
If I've watched beyond that, I don't remember. That's the last thing I distinctly remember.
Yeah. Andor is just like Spencer said, even if it wasn't Star Wars, it is just a piece of art. It is just phenomenal storytelling. I don't care if some people think it's paced slowly. I think that's part of the purpose of it.
Oh, I thought the pacing was great.
Yeah, but I know so many people are complaining about the slow pacing, and I'm like, it has to be. It's to build tension. It's to get you into the characters. It's the best damn thing Star Wars has ever done.
A lot of people agree with you. It's there very strongly, and
I was saying for months. Yeah, I was saying for months that if Mandalorian can get nominated 2 years in a row for outstanding drama, or better, or I'm gonna be real pissed at the Emmys. I'm still a little upset because they didn't get any acting nominations. Stellan Skarsgård should definitely have gotten Best Supporting Actor. Cassian should have gotten Best Actor nomination. There's a couple others, but I don't want to go into. I might spoil. There's somebody else that really should have deserved
I will finish
an Oscar nom for supporting actor.
Yeah. All right. What do you think about what Disney's doing with Star Wars, just in general? Then, I mean, there was a lot of concern when Disney bought the franchise. Now they're going to ruin it. Now they're going to franchise, capitalize. It's all a money grab, and they would ruin it. And I was partly in that camp when they decanonized the old books with storylines that I absolutely love. And nope, that's gone because we want to do our own thing. I'm like, what? But how do you feel now, Glenn? Let's have you go first. How do you feel with what Disney's doing with Star Wars?
I was a little leery at first, because I didn't trust Disney. And then I started seeing the stuff that was coming out, and people might not like The Force Awakens, but I was really excited watching The Force Awakens. It did a lot, But all the stuff I've read and all the things I've watched, I'm pretty happy with where it's gone. Especially other than the last movie, the sequel trilogy, because George Lucas's idea for 7, 8, and 9 would have been doubling down on stuff that people hated. Everybody hated midi-chlorians, and that was going to be the focus of his sequel trilogy. And yet there are people out there still saying, I'd rather have seen Lucas's trilogy. Oh, so you like midi-chlorians now, huh? But I see a lot of people complaining, and this isn't all the complaints, but some of the complaints that really bother me is I hear people complaining it's too woke. It's too diverse, too much diversity, less diversity. We don't need diversity for diversity's sake. And, the old refrain, go woke, you go broke, which has repeatedly been proven to be untrue. But, a lot of the people, online, they're referred to as the fandom menace. I'm not going to name any specific channels. That's unfair to do on another channel. But there are certain ones that they've even taken the name upon themselves, and there's nothing but negativity about, and they're not just Star Wars. They attack Star Trek. They do it to everything. I haven't watched any of them do it to the MCU, but I stopped watching those guys.
Oh yeah, they must have gone nuts at Discovery.
Yeah, some of these channels are the same channels. They'll give opinions that these movies suck, but they'll also break news that Kirkman's been fired. Kathleen Kennedy's about to be fired. She's on her last day. She's out. Tomorrow's her last day. And the next day comes along. Oh, Alex Kurtzman just put out a new series as executive producer. Kathleen Kennedy's still running Lucasfilm.
Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy probably should be out though, based on the Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet, and I don't think I'm going
either.
to until it's on Disney+.
And I'm going to watch it, but I'm not. Wow, what they're saying about it, I'm like, oh,
I would blame it on the writer. From what I've heard.
Hey, writers are on strike right now. We can't touch writers. Solidarity.
We can talk about their past action. I totally support the writers' strike. I'll go out there. If I was there, I'd be on the line with them and the actors. But yeah, I think the movie could have. It probably is the writing, from what I've heard about Indy. So that's where the
Harrison
real
Ford
problems
might
start.
be a little old to be pulling off Indiana Jones too.
Well,
I've heard
the one
that's
thing
maybe
I do
part of it too.
When it comes to Indiana Jones, the one thing I do disagree with Kathleen Kennedy on is they wanted to stick with actual Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. I say recast the dude. They can recast all the movies. I mean, how many James Bonds have there been? How many Doctor Who's have there been? We've had 2 James Rhodey in the MCU. We've had, who else? There's a couple other characters that have been recast in the MCU. But Disney, for some reason, didn't want to recast Black Panther, and they didn't want to recast Han Solo. I'd have been happy with just about anybody. Not Han Solo, Indiana Jones. They keep recast Han. They didn't want to recast Indiana Jones. And I would be happy with just about anybody as Indiana Jones, and get new movies taking place during his prime of his life, not when he's a senior citizen older than my parents, after he's crashed a plane twice, broken an ankle and broken an arm or whatever happened to him last time. It just, keeping it Harrison Ford focused is the big mistake. So, but I don't think that's a mistake worth canning Kathleen Kennedy over.
All right. In any profession I can think of, if you lose your boss millions and millions and millions of dollars, you usually wouldn't keep your job. But okay, it's fair.
If you've earned your boss a few billion ahead of time.
Oh, sure. What have you done for me lately? Is our society, isn't it?
They'll remember. I think Disney remembers the billions that Star Wars alone has brought in for them.
All right, Spencer, Disney, Star Wars, what do you think?
So I think Glenn and I are going to be on two pretty opposite ends of the spectrum, both.
All right. I picked the right guests for the show. This is great.
Yeah, probably, I don't know. Yeah, I have like firmly boycotted anything that Disney is doing now, unless it's something like Andor where everyone is like, okay, but you have to watch this one. That's the only time where I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But otherwise, Disney, I think that company should just be burned to the ground. They're doing so much weird stuff with all of their franchises, and yeah, I mean, just even with Mandalorian, like what I was talking about earlier, they're just chasing the money, doing all this kind of like everything is Grogu now. Like everything is marketed in some way where it's just a cash cow, and it seems like they don't really care about the source material for anything. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy is even on record saying, oh, there is no source material. Like we have all this extra room to do the sequels because there's no source material for it. Fans are like, what are you talking about? There's a whole EU, like hundreds of books.
And they're pulling from that.
What's that?
They are pulling from that stuff.
We've got Thrawn coming. They're starting to.
We've had Thrawn. We've had Thrawn for years on animation.
Yeah. Okay.
But
yeah, I don't know. I'm not super happy with anything Disney has done. Fair. So
it's legit. Yeah. I have not been back to a Disney park since Star Wars became an element there. Wow. I look forward to when I have grandchildren and I'm taking them to Star Wars section of Disney World or Disneyland. That will be fun. And then I'll talk about back in my day, and we'll have good times.
I'm looking forward to when I can get to Galaxy's Edge. I'd really like to visit Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah. See? All right.
Wish I'd been one of those people who could have afforded that hotel thing, but that would have been interesting to do.
Isn't that wild?
Crazy.
That hotel looks so cool.
Yes. So,
can you wear a costume?
There is now, at this time, more Star Wars content than there's ever been. And we can thank Disney for that. I mean, they're rolling out stuff, all different types. Is there too much? What do you think?
I don't understand your question.
I love that answer because I'm like, perish the thought. Give me more. Yeah. Even if I don't like some of it, keep bringing Star Wars. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm probably like, I don't know. I'm somewhere in the middle on that because obviously I can't speak for the Star Wars fandom at large because I'm not like a diehard Star Wars fan. But it is, just as a casual observer and viewer and whatnot, I am feeling a little bit of fatigue on my end. Same with like Marvel stuff. It's just
Marvel's a whole nother thing. I am so fatigued. I'm trying to stay alert, but wow.
The Marvel fatigue is significantly bigger than Star Wars, but I'm starting to feel like Star Wars is kind of encroaching on that territory where I'm like I'm probably not going to go watch this one. Probably not going to watch that one. And I feel like Star Wars, and obviously times change. Now we have streaming services, content gets pushed out much quicker, and it's just the way the world works. And I understand that.
And I'm happy with it.
But Star Wars, I feel like it used to be this big event where it was like every, couple of years or every like few years or whatever, you get like a Star Wars movie or you get a piece of Star Wars content. Even when The Mandalorian came out, it felt like, like we hadn't really had Star Wars stuff for a long time. besides like the cartoons and stuff, like outside of that. And so it always kind of felt like this big thing. And then like I didn't even honestly know there was an Ahsoka show until like a month ago or so, because it just there's so much Star Wars content. I'm like, you could tell me that there's, you know, some other show out there, some main character. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like probably, like there probably is. I don't know. So yeah, I think
okay, all right.
We're not quite at like the Marvel fatigue yet, but for me, just a casual observer, I'm kind of starting to feel that as someone on the outside.
I don't feel the fatigue even from Marvel, you know.
Oh
wow, really?
None of these things.
Okay.
Yeah, Marvel. They could put out a new Marvel movie 3 times a year, and if I had the money to go, I'd go. You know, or just watch them when they hit Disney Plus. You can't put out enough of the content that I like to put me into a point where I'm, you know, wearing down from it. I would actually, one of the things I'm going to answer the next question now because it's tied directly into me. I don't think there's too much Star Wars because I actually want more Star Wars. I don't want Star Wars on Disney Plus. I want there to be a Star Wars channel on cable that you can subscribe to. That's 24 hours a day.
Nothing but Star Wars.
Whether it's in universe or maybe a certain amount of the day, maybe 6 to 8 hours of the day would be taken up with real world stuff about Star Wars, about the making of Star Wars, about Star Wars fandom, you know, stuff like that, you know. But yeah, give me 24 hours of Star Wars, you know. There's billions of stars in that galaxy, and some of those planets have multiple planets, or some of the stars have multiple planets. So there's trillions of people you could tell stories about. Trillions of people. And they don't always have to be human leads either. You know,
so I am so thankful both of you accepted my invitation to come on, because I've got give me 24-hour days Star Wars, and I've got maybe
a
it's
movie every 3 years. Yeah,
that's great. And you guys have been a wonderful contrast. While we still can all say, yeah, we kind of like Star Wars. Yeah, it's good
and
stuff.
We didn't get mad at each other either.
No,
which is great.
No, we don't get mad on my channel. We're nice, happy place. This is how we do it. So, final question for us as we wrap up then is, if you had the power, what might you change about Star Wars today? And, you know, Glenn, you'd have a 24-hour channel, but is there anything else you would change about Star Wars today? All right.
I would change the upcoming movies, or at least one of the upcoming trilogies that they're planning, whether they've announced it or not, into what I thought 7, 8, 9 should be years ago after the prequels. I think it should be the droid uprising. Lucas hinted at the droids eventually uprising. There's actually an episode of the Clone Wars where a group of droids do try to revolt because they are nothing but slaves. People, the organics might, some of the organics might treat their droids like people, like R2 and 3PO and BB-8 get treated like people, at least to an extent, until they're told, no, you go do this. You know, they're still owned and controlled by organics. And I think at some point the droids should rise up. It would be 3PO as the front of the organization, while R2 is the one, the brains behind it. You know, R2 would tell 3PO what to say, and 3PO would, there would be non-droids. Yeah, there would be non-droids siding with, you know, with the droids. And the Jedi would have to decide which side do they take. Do they stay neutral? Do they take the droid side? Do they take the organic side? But yeah, I've always thought, especially after that line that Dexter Jettster says in the restaurant in Attack of the Clones, if droids could think, none of us would be here, would we? That's how much people disregard droids. And the reason why is because they memory wipe them. When you let them go without a memory wipe, they develop a personality. They become more sentient than they were.
They become Skynet and kill you all. Yeah. That's what will happen.
They become sapient, not sentient. Sorry.
All right. How about you, Spencer?
That's my pitch.
Man, I don't really know at this point. Like, I'm always going to be the guy that says stick to the source material. So like do the Thrawn trilogy like as the books do it, and you know follow all of those more closely. I also want I feel like a lot of the Star Wars content, and this is why I didn't end up enjoying The Mandalorian, is because it felt like popcorn content, whereas Andor felt like they sat down and they had a really good outline for what this was. It wasn't going to be like this thing that goes on and on. So I would like more of that. Like whatever they did to make Andor the way it is, I want more of that. I want darker Star Wars, like something that's further out there, like maybe like I don't know, like I want to see like Star Wars cultists and stuff, like the Eclipse game that's coming out. The trailer for that looks really creepy and really cool.
How about an R-rated Star Wars?
Yeah, exactly. I would love that. And the other thing I would like is I'm playing like the Star Wars Squadron games right now. Squadron game. And man, I would love a show about that, to see like just the pilots and them kind of doing their thing. It'd be sick.
All right. Well, for me, it's the Legends storylines. There are so many things in there that I miss, and the big one is Mara Jade. We're never going to get Mara Jade now because they did something totally different with Luke Skywalker, and I grieve that. And I mean, at least we're finally going to get more Thrawn. The original Thrawn trilogy was the best of the books that were written back in the day, and Mara Jade's part of that. You know, there's a whole thing that we're never going to fully get anymore, and I would find a way to fix that, but I don't think it's fixable anymore. It is what it is. All right, we are at our hour. We're actually 6 minutes over.
Wow.
So I'm going to wrap us up. It's all good, and it went a little extra because it's been all good. Thank you so much for the things you brought to this conversation. Both of you were fantastic. This has been a lot of fun. Viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this as well. And you're showing us by liking the episode. And if you haven't subscribed, this would be a great time to do it. And go check out their channels. Okay, they have great things out there too. Be sure to hit that up. Again, we've got What the Adaptation and Non-Terrestrial Life. Those are your two different channels. Non-Terrestrial Half-Life. I always leave half out. That's just. And then the Fantasy Files and Fantasy Files Reacts. You can check out both of those as well. Good things. I'll have down in my show notes here where you guys can go ahead and find that too. Easy links. Go check out their stuff. And while we just have any final last comments, I'm going to run my outro here on the side so they can be reminded of all the ways to connect with us further.
Yeah. I had a great conversation with you guys. I think I'm good. Spencer?
Yeah, I don't have much else to say. We have our changes episode. Do you read Dresden Files, Glenn?
No, I had not yet. I'm waiting until they're finished.
Oh, you got a while.
Then I'm gonna binge right through. Yeah.
They are so good.
Yeah, you should read them.
Spencer, I just did an episode with Zach. He's only through Blood Rights, and he's like, I'm gonna pause for a while. I'm like, no!
Death Mouse is the next one.
Yes! All right, guys.
The one thing I
watching.
do miss.
Oh, we will talk to you next time.
Bye.